look like I'm 23 or in one, and then I'm 63.
I was gonna say, like, I saw one comment. This guy looks like he's 60.
It's like, dude, but then you told me I look like I'm 12.
What is going on, my friends? Check it out. Welcome to another Chopping It Up with my boys. Introduce yourselves. I got you guys. I wanted to see.
I am Eric, otherwise known as Eric the Electric.
And I am Tim Thibodeau, otherwise known as...
Mr. Tim Thibabadabadoo.
There we go.
Tim Tippy Toes.
Or Tim Tuppy Tits.
Ooh. So if you guys are new to Chopping It Up, Chopping It Up is a series where we basically just literally talk. It's from hip hop, chopping it up, but we will not have any edits or anything in this video, so this is a great thing to listen to while you're on the drive to work or on the cardio machine. Anything that's going to take a long time, maybe cleaning the house.
Or riding a bike.
Boom! There you go.
Possibly.
He's a cyclist, just in case you didn't catch that from that line right there. But you'll just basically be seeing us talking completely candidly. It's a great way to see us like genuinely go through a topic without there being any structure or reason for it to be like da-da-da-da-da real fast. So sit back and enjoy, and hopefully you enjoy this topic, which is the topic of binging. So we're just going to go into it and just kind of like, we'll be down many rabbit holes. That's how this works.
Yes.
We just go down random information. So we're just going to talk about it in general. But I think this is relevant for all of us in a way, because for me, like, obviously, if you just came from like my contest prepping and stuff, like a lot of people right after bodybuilding competitions, it's almost like expected. You're almost like supposed to go out and eat just terrible food until you're stuffed, go to bed, wake up, start stuffing yourself again. It's like a binge mentality. You do.
With me, surprisingly enough, and you really wouldn't expect to hear this, but powerlifting meets, and not only me, but I've experienced it like just in front of me, because you're cutting weight, you're cutting water and all this stuff, and all of a sudden you see all these people bring like Sour Patch Kids and full-on packaged meals and stuff.
Gotta get those carbs in, guys.
No, I mean, it can be done correctly, but once you go past that fine line right there, you were just screwed for the meat. But what have you like experienced with binge eating?
It's with me. You see, most of my videos are these large amounts of food. We'll just put it that way.
That's an understatement. Large.
I just
50,000 calories.
Gosh.
Yeah, I think that people use the word binge, and then there's the term overeating. So I think that when you use the term binge, you're kind of already setting it as it has a negative connotation to it. I feel like personally with me, it's just my own opinion, is that binging is where you actually, like Tim was touching on, you lose a sense of yourself, you lose your own kind of consciousness, and you don't know what's going on. You just want to eat as much as possible. Everybody overeats. That's totally natural, but I feel like most of these things we're talking about, like bodybuilding and powerlifting meets, and just restricting yourself from food over a longer course of
time,
period of time, you develop this fixation where you need to just consume all this food at one point, where it's a little different in compared to overeating. So that's just how I feel about it. So
I feel like when you're doing like bodybuilding and powerlifting, or actually really just any sort of performance sport where you're burning tons of calories, so inevitably your caloric intake on a normal basis, what your regular diet should be, is higher, right?
Right.
So like as a bodybuilder, when I bulk, sometimes I have to go 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day to put on weight, which to me is just it's just what I have to do. It's not a big deal. But like you build the tendency almost of like someone who's like, you build an obese style of tendency where like for me to be satisfied, I have to have a large amount of chews in a meal for me to feel like I had a meal. So like by the time I do get down to dieting and prepping, and then we're eating small amounts of food, my regular life, my 8 to 12 month life in the year is so used to getting huge heaping servings. So right after you come out of a competition, now you've dropped all your chews down to like 10 chews per meal. And you used to have 50 chews per meal. So then you get that permission to have whatever you want.
That's exactly that permission, and then the psychological part comes in where it's like, okay, is this really enough? Should I really be eating that much? And then you just start to second guess yourself, as I'm sure you probably did a lot of the time, where you're just like, I don't know, like is this going to be okay with me in the long run? And then it's really all about knowing that you're going to be okay, though, if you do have those lapses. And I feel like we're going to start touching upon that, now, is like, what's going to happen after you do eventually kind of just say, like, screw it. I'm gonna have whatever I want and not feel bad about it, you know.
And it's a good thing that you bring up the mentality too, because, and I'm sure like everybody that has had some degree of binge eating has experienced this. Once you, like, let's say you're in contest prep or you're dieting down for a powerlifting meet or something, and you screw up one time, then you tell yourself, I already screwed up, so the rest of the day, I'm just gonna have like endless amounts of calories. And like we've all had that. We have all had that. I know I'm actually cutting for a powerlifting meet right now, and while I was in LA with John, Obese to Beast, I kind of screwed up because I overate a little bit. So I was just like, screw it, I'm gonna have like the highest amount of sodium in this one meal, gonna have all this fish, all this pasta. So I even like recently I experienced it, but like you said, you have to tell yourself it's gonna be okay. It's just one day. But
a huge thing, and totally like what you're saying, is this one day or maybe even 2 days, 3 days. It's just, and granted, this is just in my sense, I don't compete or anything like that. It's just not something to stress over. It's not something to just kill yourself about. If you're just like, gosh, man, like, I'm so done with this cut now. Like, all that, you know, those brownies I eat, that just killed everything. It's just, that's just not the way the body works. I'm sorry. You know, it's science. So anybody that really beats themselves up for it, that's not competing, I feel like is just setting themselves up for failure just in general with, you know, with their goals. I mean,
there's only a certain amount that you can add, like body fat.
Yeah.
Like you can't, like you just had that 50,000 calories in 50 hours. So basically 2 days, 50,000. Yeah. That's like 3 weeks. You were saying 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks worth of food.
That's crazy.
I don't ever recommend doing
that. And there's people in the comment section breaking down, you know, well, okay, 3,500 calories is a pound of fat, and you had this many, so you should be adding 15 pounds of fat. But the body can't even digest that much because you don't have enough enzymes, you don't have enough to break down that amount of food.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, if you look at even competitive eaters like Matt Stoney, like, he's the #1 competitive eater in the world, and he does not have an ounce of fat on him. So that just goes to validate that statement right there. You can't metabolize all that food in just one time.
Yeah, and so. I've talked about this a lot, too, on my channel. And this is not really a reason. It's not a justification for going out, okay, cool, I'm not going to be able to metabolize it all. Let's just go eat it all anyways. It's just, that's not a really way to take it, too. But then again, it's I mean, you can't realistically look at my video, for example, and be like, hey, he ate 50,000 calories, he's going to gain this amount of fat. It's just not the way the body works. Everybody's body is different. Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget about that.
There's like how you said, there's a fine line between coping with binging and understanding what's going to happen. Like, because if you just binge and then you're like, it's going to be all right, I can't even add, and then the next night you're like, it's okay, it's not even. So that's coping. And if you just tell yourself that it's okay all the time, then that's when it's like you create binging. But yeah, you're right. Like, if it's not something that's happening on a daily basis where you're fighting it day to day, or like, you know, every other day or something like that. If it's something that happened like you're contest prepping, so you're in an unusual period of your time in your diet, and then you accidentally have something bad, and then it triggers you to eat more and then you end up 5,000, 6,000, or 7,000 more. That's where that comes in, where you're like, dude, like, logically, it's not going to ruin me. I can continue tomorrow on the same diet, and in 4 weeks, I'll still be somewhere that I want it to be.
What's sustainable and what's not sustainable, essentially. I mean, I personally feel like we all, every single one of us and everyone watching, we all have a relationship with food. You know, and that can get really, really warped and out of whack with a lot of what we're talking about, you know, and you really, I feel like if you're constantly, you were just touching on it too, if you're having these daily thoughts where like, it's just, am I going to binge today? Am I going to be okay today? That's at the end of the day, what you need to really sit down with yourself and think about is how is your relationship with food? You know, like what does it look like? Does a normal person have to battle with the same thoughts that you're battling with right now? That's essentially what we all are. We're normal people, you know? I mean, there's just, it's not really going to make or break you in the long run. I mean,
true,
ideally. So that's just how I feel about it.
And with like any relationship, even like a real life relationship with your girlfriend or something's not right, and you're constantly thinking about that relationship, then you have to figure out how you're going to get over it, or how you're going to fix it, right? So you have to try something new in the relationship, or, you know, take some time away from the relationship, things like that. Like, I feel like some people need to change the way that they are even just looking at the way that they're looking at binging. You know what I mean? Because if you just keep having the same thoughts and they're not helping, you need to look at it a different way, so you have different thoughts that could possibly spawn you out of it. Go ahead. But
I was going to say, even then it's kind of touchy, because some people just don't, they're not confident enough in themselves to reevaluate an entire situation, and that's where it's like just something as simple as talking to somebody else about these binge issues can just make the situation 1,000 times better.
That's so true, man.
Have you ever had a coach for bodybuilding, or you've just like...
Yeah, my first competition I coach.
And did you have any like binge moments during that, or like any issues with the diet where you wanted to eat
first time
something?
I was like, I'm gonna be a pro. So I was like, everything is, and it really was perfect. So yeah. But after that, yeah.
Yeah, but
he's a natural champion, guys.
Yes, he's the champion of everything, right?
Here. 28th place, baby.
Yeah, right. but even though like you haven't experienced something with that, even like if you're just trying to, you're an average person, you go into a commercial gym and you get a trainer. Just if you have issues, just talk to them. It's like I want to binge today, but like, is it okay? Like, should I talk to this person right here? Talking to someone is such a powerful tool, and people just take that for granted right there because they think they could solve all of their issues by themselves, but
and they're embarrassed.
Yeah. Like there's a reason that we're here with 7 billion other people on this planet. Yeah. Like some people you can survive by yourself, but mentally it's just healthy to have other people in your life talking about your issues in this situation. Binge eating, because it's a huge problem that people don't want to talk about. Granted, I haven't experienced it as bad as other people have, and I probably never will, but I don't know, like...
A huge thing with binge eating, too, and you touched on it pretty well, is most binges, and it's a pretty general statement, but most of them will happen when you're alone. By yourself, and because you don't want others to see the massive amount of food you're consuming. And so, for me personally, when I got to my worst with anorexia, I did binge eat nothing but vegetables, but I would do so in my apartment alone, no one around me. I lived by myself, and it's like most of these guys that go out and do these binges after shows, after contests, don't want people to know what just happened.
True,
And so that's kind of where talking to somebody really does help when that happens, and you just reach out. And that's why I tell people, if you have those urges, reach out. As hard as it is and hard as it may be, that's the best thing. That's what's going to help you, and I don't, it's not something that a lot of people really take advantage of, and it's something that can help them out during that scenario. So.
And certain people create like certain statuses about themselves. Like, for example, say you go to the gym all the time with these 5-6 dudes, you're kind of the leader of the pack. You're always the biggest guy, setting the weights, all that stuff, right? So in that position, it's got to be hard to...
Yeah, like you don't want to tell anybody, like, I'm struggling, I need help, because like you're like the alpha.
Exactly. They look up to you for motivation. Why are you going to look to them for motivation, right? Like, you may... In your head, you might think, if I tell them, like, bro, I'm struggling, I might want to eat, blah, 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 they might be like, this guy's not all he's cracked up to be. I can't look up to this guy. He's suffering and stuff. Like, I'm not suffering. But like, man, does it help. Like, the thing I was going to say, when you first brought up just talking to people changes the way that you look at everything.
Yeah.
When I talk to other YouTubers, I get so fired up when they all leave me and I'm by myself again. I get so fired up to do all this YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
Because I just had a whole different perspective brought into my brain that I wasn't thinking in the first place. But then I got fired up because I was like, I do agree. Whoa, and then all this passion is building, and you get like these new thoughts that you would have never spawned yourself sitting in your room at 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
And you have a whole new perspective.
Human interaction is just like it really does help at the end of the day.
It's huge.
It can be a beneficial thing, extremely beneficial. It can actually be, it can hurt sometimes too.
It can be destructive.
Being realistic.
Everything has its positives and negatives.
I mean, even at my gym, where a lot of people know about my food challenges, it's kind of, well, it can be it can have it's pros and cons. I actually just one comment a few days ago kind of changed my day around. I mean, I did a challenge a few weeks ago, and a guy was just like, yeah, man, it was a cool video, and then he made a comment about binge eating, and that's where the connotation with binge eating, I think people really have they don't really think the power of words means a lot to a lot of different people. And I don't have I think of it as a negative term, and for me to hear that someone actually saying to me in person, that was binge eating, like one of my videos you watched, it like it hurt me, to have that. So I can only imagine what it would feel like too if your life was surrounded by that, especially,
and you're already 360 thinking about it in your own head,
because that's not the message that I want to be spreading to people, and that's what at all. So but then again, it's like the power of words again, it's huge. So but yeah, so but definitely, I think interacting with others when you are in those settings is really huge. And I think that, one thing we really should touch upon too is actually figuring out what realistically is behind most of the binges. And certain people can have foods that trigger most binges.
So many different triggers.
I know peanut butter is a huge thing. Oh my goodness.
Oh man, peanut butter.
Love it.
Well,
but I don't know if any of you guys are the same with me. It's peanut butter is huge with me. I
wanted to bring up the same thing. I want to kind of talk through the process of the binge because I'm sure it's different for each person. Mm-hmm. For me personally, it's foods that I don't usually eat. Mm-hmm. Even if it's good food stuff, if I usually eat it, then it's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. But because I think what it is for example, the cookies thing, that is my trigger, man. And there's other triggers obviously, but in the last probably year and a half, it's always been started with the Lenny and Larry's cookie. Mm-hmm. And that sounds terrible, but I'm not a sweets guy. I don't go big into sweet. I could give a damn. If I'm feeling really hungry, I'm gonna eat 2 bowls of noodles. Yeah. Not a bowl of noodles and then a shitload of fucking shakes and stuff afterwards. Yeah. But then when I have a Lenny and Larry's cookie there and I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I'll have it. Why not? Just one and the night out. And because it's it's sweet, not savory, it's fat and not sugar, and I don't have those combos very often. Mm-hmm. It's my tongue isn't used to it, so my imagination of what it's going to taste like is so off of actually putting it in my mouth, and then I'm like, whoa, that's an A plus. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then by the time I get done with one, then that thing comes in where you were saying I already put extra 400 calories over my goal today.
Let's just eat the rest of the box
then! Exactly. Tomorrow I'm still going to feel like I went over maintenance. And then, so if I eat more, it's tomorrow I'm just going to wake up still feeling like I went over maintenance. Yeah. Even though then I'll eat 6, 7, 8 more and eat 7 times 4. Yeah. It's so much more calories. Yeah. That's my process. Is not being used to the food, getting excited, then being fuck it. Yeah. And then I go hard into it.
Yeah, with me it's kind of a weird cycle because it always begins with cereal.
Oh, okay.
I'll get really hungry late at night. We've got some sugary cereal in the cabinet. Then it's I'm gonna measure this out, and then I finish a bowl. It's oh my god, that was so good. And then I just
serving size of cereal. Who eats a serving of cereal? It's come on.
But it gets even better because I'll just toss the scale aside, then get this huge metal bowl that we use for salads. It's let me just pour the whole bag in.
Everybody knows the metal bowl.
So. That's it. Oh,
dude, wait, hold on. One note I want to make with cereal, because I think this is true, man. When people start binging on cereal, I think they're already dehydrated before they got to the cereal, and the milk is hydrated. Yeah. So not only is it delicious, but then you're I need more because I just feel like my body needs more, which is you need more.
Hydrate, everybody. Hydrate before your cereal.
Dude, good way to stop a binge halfway through, though, is to chug a frick load of water.
Yeah, because you're just full. It's I can't put any more in my system, so... Yeah.
I always forget to drink water until the end of my total binge session. When I'm right about to go to bed, I'll be I drink a little water. And then I realize how damn full I am, because then my stomach hurts bad.
Yeah, that's another thing, too, with it, is these urges. You really, before you really get into that binge, sit down and be what's causing this? That's what it's all... Binging is mindless eating, essentially, to me. So if you're using your mind and really thinking about it in the first place, it can help out a lot. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, something as simple as just reevaluating why am I doing this? The number one cause of binging, I think, is boredom. Yeah, you're just bored, so you're gonna eat a bunch of food. It's
it certainly doesn't happen right in the middle of lunch, in the middle of 2 work sessions.
Yeah, right. It's if you're bored, what are you gonna do to I don't know, just get yourself out of the house? Getting yourself out of the house, it's bam, going out for a walk. Okay, I'm not eating 3,000 extra calories of food right there. So just reevaluating, another powerful tool right there. We're just making an entire list of powerful tools to stop binging.
Dude, that's actually true. You can make a checklist. It would be very helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally. Your body could be craving something. Your mind has nothing. It's literally when you're thirsty, it's not your mind that's telling you thirsty. Your body's telling you thirsty. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you might not realize that there are A, B, and C things that your body had needed at that point in the day. Mm-hmm. Then you replace it with cereal.
It's terrible. In my case, it is.
That's your problem.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Right there. Cinnamon
so bad, man.
Yeah, it's crunch.
Okay. One thing I want to ask you guys is with alcohol, alcoholism or drug dependent people who are into something, a lot of them will, after they've become sober and it's been 10 years, they still consider themselves an alcoholic. And I think that's kind of it's a very noble thing to do. Mm-hmm. Because you're obviously not drinking alcohol anymore, so you're not an active alcoholic.
But you need food to live. essentially. Like,
I know, that's the trippy thing.
Yep.
But you recognize that you always will have somewhere in your body you could drink shitloads of alcohol.
Yeah.
Same thing with binging. In my opinion, like once you are someone who can binge, it doesn't leave you. You just don't accept. Like, let yourself binge. Do you agree with that?
No,
or do you feel like you get over binging?
No, because I've noticed with I've actually noticed this on Instagram a ton with binge eaters. They'll say that they gotten over it. Oh, 1 year binge free, but then they'll still make note in some posts like, yeah, I still struggle with binging. Like it's true. It's never going to leave you. I don't know. It's kind of touchy because I've never really had an issue with binge eating. I just do it every now and then, but
it comes and goes for you. Yeah,
it just comes and goes. I've never really struggled with an eating disorder, so to say. More so just body image disorders with me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what do you think, Eric?
So for something like this, for those of you who don't know, I consider myself anorexic and always will have anorexia. I think binge eating is essentially, it is an eating disorder, obviously, but it's just Brian was touching on. It's not something we need food every day to live, and this is where the mental aspect to this really ties in because I feel like you can recover from anorexia. You can recover from an eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
It's about fixing that mental part of you. And I think people underestimate the human brain in so many different ways. They underestimate the complexity of the human brain. If you can turn that part off that was causing those binges to keep happening over and over and over and over again, and they eventually do diminish, that part of you can be fixed. I mean, I feel like that can. That, again, as I was touching on earlier, your relationship with food and that negative part of your life where you were out of that contest and you were just, okay, I gotta go to Panda Express after, I'm gonna plan every binge, oh man, it's gonna be the best part, and I'm gonna feel like crap the day after. Like, if you can fix that part of your life and that part of your brain that was telling you it was okay to do that, it's going to take some time. I think a lot of people just don't give it enough time.
It's not like a switch like that.
Yeah.
It's anything.
If you can flip that switch off and be consistent with it, you will get better. You will recover from it. That's my standpoint on it. So I feel like that's perfectly possible. And I feel like that is essentially the same with anorexia, but that's a different video for a different day.
Yeah.
So,
and we're going to do that one, man.
Oh, yeah. Look forward to it.
I'm excited about it.
Oh, yeah.
The thing, you started to say, then you went into a different topic, and I've said this before, and I think it is the most interesting thing. Like, it is just literally, it's really terrible to think about how difficult it is to be someone who's struggling with binging. Mm-hmm. If you are a heroin addict, and then you want to stop heroin, eventually you stop heroin, and then you keep yourself from ever doing it again. Mm-hmm. Same thing with alcohol.
Yeah.
But with binging, you have to give yourself a small amount of food a day.
Exactly.
You have to eat your normal amount to live, dude. So it's like you can't just not eat.
Yeah, it's just something that's impossible to avoid.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, because like you said, you need food to survive.
Can you imagine being addicted to heroin and then someone's like, you need to take this much every day though, but no more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't take more than that.
Yeah.
Have this one beer, but don't you fucking get drunk.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing me. And I have so much respect for somebody that can come from binge mentality and then get back to some a normal balance.
Tim was touching on it a little bit earlier. You think that I do agree that a large portion of binges or a lot of binges really start with boredom. I definitely agree with that. I would say that another main point to that too is a lot of these binges start with in my opinion just being at a absurdly low body fat.
Oh yeah,
low weight,
without a doubt.
That ties into it. I mean, I just see most of these people, because I get a lot of messages too from people, and I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. Like, oh yeah, I'm just, I'm killing it with this cut right now. I'm trying to get to 7% body fat. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
why? You're messaging me about binge eating. That's right where I see right after that. You're trying to get this. What do you get a trophy at the end of it? I mean, I hope you do. I hope someone's giving you a damn trophy for that. 'Cause, I mean, honestly. But then again, think about your goals. Like, are you going to get something? Are you getting paid to be at 7% body fat? Is there a reason why you need to do that? Then again, that's why that's causing that in the first place. And I think a lot of people are like, oh no. I mean, that's my goal. I need to do that.
Yeah,
well, you need to realize then your binges are going to keep happening because your body's trying to tell you something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, do you think we could also bring up social media? in that because
how we fixate on counting macros and doing all this stuff.
Not even that. It's just like putting all these people on pedestals. It's like I need to look like that person right there. So you like deprive yourself for so long, and then you put yourself in that mentality. You know, I just eat this one extra thing a day, and then it's going to turn into something worse. This and that, deterring from my goals right there. Then that could spiral downward into something even worse, such as mental issues.
You're so right.
There's just like so much stuff that revolves around binge eating these days. It's ridiculous.
All these people that are shredded at 8% body fat that are on Instagram and everything, they're not perfect either.
No,
let's be honest. They're not perfect at all.
I can attest that some of the people that some of you guys look up to are taking a lot of drugs. And I'm not talking about steroids and things like I'm talking about like drugs like heroin and like what's that shit called? Adderall.
Yeah.
That is why a lot of those people are at extremely low body fats, man.
Yeah, they can take appetite suppressants and they can do everything that they need to do to ignore their hunger.
And then the golden image though that you get is that picture that they put up, and then you're like, man, I need to look like that. I don't look like that. Yeah. I hate myself. Because, dude, I had that same... I know this isn't about their body dysmorphia, but, like, I had that same mentality for about 6 years at the beginning of my lifting. I'm 9 years in now. It took me so long to be like, you know what, dude? I'm okay with this body. This looks perfectly fine to me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and it would spawn so many problems, man. I would be like, whatever I'm doing now, not good enough, so you're not happy. And then that can cause you to binge. You wake up the next morning, you look at yourself, I look terrible. I'm going to not eat all day. And that causes another binge the next night.
Yeah, and that's a really great point too. What I wanted to touch upon too, it's because I've definitely had days of overeating where it's like, okay, I had a gigantic 12,000 calorie challenge. I feel like garbage today. Is dealing with the after effects of a binge and how you go about approaching that, because a lot of people will go and binge restrict, and that cycle. It just goes over and over and over again. It's a horrible cycle to be in,
and you never feel good.
Exactly, and a lot of people just don't know really how to deal with that. But then again, it's sitting back and taking note of that and realizing how bad you feel, and when that binge urge comes up again.
Just think back to like how crappy you felt.
Taking notes, or just recording yourself. Like, just don't go back to that point again.
Dude.
Yeah, it's like you just
pull out your iPhone when you're at the end and you feel your very worst right before bed and you can barely speak. All that stuff.
I personally and I'm getting pretty personal here, anyways. But I had I did a lot of vlogging when I did have my first apartment for myself, and I did the binge eating on vegetables. And one night I pulled out my camera, as awkward as it really was for me. I recorded it. I was just like, hey, this is what's going on right now. I want my future to take note, like see where I'm at. I was this sick looking guy. I still have that video to this day. Yeah, I still have a video to this day, and it's just like, you know, it like shows me like where I was at one point. But if you need to do that in order to stop a binge from happening, then by all means do it.
Yeah, man.
Hell yeah, you know, it's like, and it did help me back then.
Dude, that's smart.
It did. So I mean, you know, a lot of people I would highly suggest to do the same.
Yeah.
So
that's something that's like self-analytic and self-progressive, and it's hard for a lot of people to be self-analyzing. It's very difficult, man. And but just by being here right now, you don't have to self-analyze. You can take that tip, directly use it as soon as you hit your next binge.
Yeah.
That is such a powerful. That's why I like speaking with other people, because I know you personally have a lot more experience and a lot better information than I do on this topic, even though I do have things to say. That's why I think it's powerful to have all three of us here talk about this.
Yeah.
Because we all have things that it would be very difficult for someone to have already demised themselves to that point. Yeah. Like, how hard it would be for someone to be like, I should film myself, because they don't film. Nobody films themselves throughout the days. Yeah. It's just us weirdo YouTubers.
Us weirdos. Yeah. And, I mean,
that's a good one.
Yeah, I definitely think too. I mean, and not to talk too much longer on it, but yeah, I mean, the huge thing is because I was in treatment with a lot of people with binge eating disorder.
Right.
And there's, you know, a lot of people that are on. We have so much. We're talking about social media, Facebook, Instagram. Pictures of food, shredded people everywhere talking about macros. It's like, you really need to like think about it too, in the sense like, what's an actual binge? Like, are you just eating a little bit more than usual, because I think a lot of people really get down on themselves when they start to focus on their diets.
Yeah.
And they think that simply eating a few extra plates of food is a binge.
That's true.
I can't tell you guys how many people have like actually said that's what they label the binge. I'm like, no.
Binge is a hot topic word.
So I mean, you can take it in a lot of directions, but there's definitely a clinical definition for binge. I just don't really know what that is right now. But you know, you can
have like a close definition.
Yeah,
because I have something I would say.
Well, I mean, the thing with it is, and that's why I said it's changed constantly, and that's why I never really go by what the clinical definition is.
Yeah.
I believe it's like something they label it as a calorie number, and that's why I disagree with it.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it.
So what would you like consider a binge then?
Just an easy way for you to know that was a binge, not an overeat, is when I go to bed and my stomach is so tight that I literally can't take more than a 25% breath. Mm-hmm. Like, that is how tight my stomach is. And that's not overeating to me, because overeating to me, I've done it many times. Go to bed fine.
Yeah.
A little bit pressurized and stuff, but I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up the next day. Yeah, it's fine. But, like, when I go to bed and I've binged, and I know in my head, like, this was unusual binging, like, so packed tight that I can't take that breath, but then when I also wake up, like, I'm still fully pressurized.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's different for each person, but that's what it is for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and usually this happens whenever I go to like an all-you-can-eat place. I'll consider it a binge when I question like, why the fuck did I do that?
Yeah.
Like you said, like it's hard to take a breath. It's hard to even get up and go to the bathroom sometimes. It's like there's just so much pressure built up, and there's like, why am I doing this to myself, or why did I even do that? Because I already did it. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's what I would, like you said. It's kind of hard to establish a calorie number toward the binge, because you know everyone metabolizes stuff differently, and we really can't say like, oh, it was a 4,000 or 5,000 calorie binge right there. It's like we really can't put a number on it.
And if you go online and read, like, just Google binge eating disorder, they'll say like anything over 13,000 or 14,000 calories within a sitting is a binge. It's like,
that's a lot of food.
It's a lot of food, but I think of a binge is something that is something that you, again, I was touching on it earlier when we first started, is like you're detached from reality. Mm-hmm. Like you can't, I talk to some people that can't even remember their binges, like, from the night before. That's a binge right there. Yeah. You're just shoveling through food. And then they'll be like, yeah, I know I binged last night, but I woke up and there's like food all over the floor, and it's like, that's I have some gnarly stories for people, but yeah, it's like, but yeah, that's like ideally what a binge is to me. I mean, it's, I mean, just losing consciousness.
Definitely. So. Yeah, no, that's a big one too. Like, I know what you mean. Like, where you just don't even realize how many things you've put into your mouth until you almost like come to, because it starts hurting. Something starts triggering you to think about what you're doing, and then you're like looking, and you're like, why are there 6 of these wrappers, dude? Yeah. What the hell? Yeah. And then you also get the other stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
It's why I kind of always laugh when people are like, okay, you just ate a McMountain challenge with 14,000 calories and stuff like that. And I was like, you binge. I'm like, it's binge eating. I was fully aware.
I was gonna say, like, you were aware what you were doing.
100% premeditated.
These are planned.
Absolutely.
I mean, in competitive eating in general, like you mentioned Matt Stoney, like, and all these big name competitive eaters.
Like they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
So you can't consider that a binge.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, like, you can't really say that, in my opinion. That's why I disagree with a lot of these comments that are made by people that are really just not.
It's just silly, man, because you're in competitive eating.
Yeah.
You're doing it to be competitive, and there's a strategy, and there's a goal, and then there's a challenge, and then there's like a battle or a meet or whatever, right? Like,
if you eat all those hot dogs, you get the trophy.
You shove enough dogs down your throat, you get that nice $2 trophy that we bought at the trophy mart.
You get the trophy.
But yeah, like, you're not competing against anyone when you're binging.
That's a huge aspect to this. Is just not really looked at. Is the consciousness portion of it. Yeah. So and that's why I go back to that every single time. So our brains, like I said, are very, very complex.
Definitely.
So but I mean, and another thing too is with all these challenges and like a lot. I feel like binges are worse. And you were talking about the Len and Larry's cookies. When you're on like a carbohydrate restricted diet, that's a huge aspect to it. I think once you have that sugar,
your body loves
cereal,
it.
That cereal, dude,
loves it,
man. Oh my
man.
gosh. No, but like if you can think about it too, your brain it thrives on sugar, thrives on glucose. It's like you take in as much, you're just like, it's that first bite, just not good enough, it's just not good enough, it's just not good enough. I find like for me, when you're not restricting from those things and you are on a moderate carb diet, and I mean, this is touching on, another subject too, but I won't get into it, but if you're on a balanced diet, let's say that, and you are able to incorporate those cookies and stuff like that on a normal basis, binges aren't gonna happen as much. I mean, call me crazy, but I mean, balance and moderation, and if you have that enough in your day and in your diet, you're not gonna really see these.
So I think you're absolutely right when you say that. Yeah.
When these people that are like, I'm trying to get 8% body fat, it's like, is that healthy or balanced? No, and that's why the binges are happening. So that's just how I feel on it. So
usually I've noticed it's usually when I'm lacking something, like let's say it's sodium that I'm lacking. Maybe I've had like 500 milligrams of sodium that day. I'm craving something salty. I'm gonna binge. Well, overeat on that right there. I really wouldn't necessarily call it a binge. It's just like overeating.
You're gonna overcompensate.
Exactly.
Like hell.
Yeah.
Because your body it's not gonna realize that you have that 2 grams of sodium until you've eaten 9 grams of sodium. Then it's digesting that first bit, and then you're like, okay, now I feel good on salt.
Just need to calm down a little bit. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I think of it too, like, if you, because I've dealt with periods of overeating too, and even some binges too back in when I was at my worst. It's like that cookie, and I always tell people that are dealing with binge eating, if you keep eating that cookie, it's gonna taste the same. That cookie's gonna taste exactly the same. So like, when you're in that type of mode, like, what's going to be the net benefit of, like, do you really want to keep eating the same exact thing over and over and over and over again? Like, the same cheeseburger, the same it's like, it's the same thing, So what are you doing at the end of the day? What are you doing? So, I mean, that's just the way I think of it too, again. So,
I mean, it's a really good way to think about it, so.
But you got to, when you're in that sense, you're in that scenario, so. But, yeah, being mindful is huge.
Yes.
Is there anything you think that while you're in the middle of a binge, because I know we said it's an unconscious thing, but there are times where it starts conscious or whatever, or I'm sure some people binge entirely consciously and they know exactly each crumb of what they have. Is there anything, if you were like thinking back on this video as you're having a binge and you're like, I wish there was one tip that could help me mid-binge to stop where I am, at least at this half point of the binge? Is there anything that you can think of that would like help your mind, or maybe something you drink, maybe something you do, maybe you go walk outside, something?
Depending on how bad the binges are, like how long the individual's been like suffering from that binge eating disorder, or just binge eating in general. I mean, it can be really hard to get yourself out of that. Honestly, it's almost impossible for, like, when I was in treatment with some of these people, for them to be like, okay, next time, just go walk outside. Go, talk to somebody. They're gonna be like, hell no, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
And then again, it's the old adage: it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For me, I used to make like little signs. Like I'd have like a note or something like that just says like the how are you gonna feel tomorrow? That was a huge thing for me, because like I always felt like super like just disgusting the days after, because I'd eat a lot of vegetables. I eat a lot of just stuff that was filling, just like protein shakes and stuff like that, and I would just feel like garbage the next day, and so I would just keep little notes. I'd say do that. That'd be my solution to that.
Yeah.
Do notes.
I know I just did that to you guys, and it was totally the opposite of what you actually like. Like, what are you gonna do when you're binging? But I just thought maybe there might be a tip or something that came to the head. Like we said, water earlier. If you can remember to drink at least a glass or 2 of water in the middle of it, it's gonna help you be full way sooner.
Yeah.
But I think that was a solid chopping it up.
Yeah, no, I like this one.
That was one of the better ones for sure.
It up.
So. And I was gonna say, if any of you guys have like experienced binge eating, or you have some tips for people, please leave them down below in the comment section, because you have no idea how big of an issue this is. Not even just in America, but just in the world in general. Because I don't know, like on how big of a scale do you think binge eating is right now?
Man, that is so hard to put a number to. But
it's so hard to put a number to, but you know it's a huge problem. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's definitely on the rise. A lot of people are coming, like, are just realizing about themselves that their eating habits and the way they have been taking things. I mean, it's increasing just like anorexia is.
It's only going to get worse because there's more social media, so there's more like focus on that look and all that shit. Everything gets worse and worse because now we have more food and more all that stuff. Yeah, so just amplifies the problem.
Yeah, so
if you guys, like he just said, do have any ideas or anything that you want to add, you've gone through binges, if you just want to tell your story, anything, man, anything at all, maybe you want to just anonymously tell your story, make a new account or something, put it down below. Or if you guys have a video that you think is useful that addresses binging, has some strategies, something of any other YouTuber that has put out something about binging, please, I implore you, put it down below. It can help. It can help somebody that you never knew you would change their life. So it's just a little bit of effort, and you never know what you're doing for other people. So.
A little effort goes a very long way.
You're really good with those adages, bro.
Hey,
killing it.
Hey, man.
Killing it.
If you guys can, please check out both of my brothers. They both have amazing YouTube channels, and they've both been around for years and years. Like, the work is, it's noticeable. You'll be able to tell that they put a lot of work into the channel, especially when you start scrolling and see how many thumbnails they have on their channel. These boys work harder than pretty much anyone else I know on YouTube, so please check them both out. The links will be in the description below. But yeah, I think that wraps it up. I hope you guys you feel good about the topic.
Oh, no, I
That's
feel
awesome. I'm so glad we talked about that. That
Yeah,
was awesome.
seriously. I mean, it's not something that I personally struggled with a ton, but just knowing that this video could possibly help at least one person already makes me feel so much better. So I think it was a good chopping it up.
Yeah, me too, man.
That's really good.
Alright, so if you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. Subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Team Beyond the Week.
CT. It's like, which way do I look?
Lift heavy or die, MIRIN, mother.